opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of the station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view.
This is The Huddle, community created on Shaw TV. I'm Scott Taylor. That's John Mackey, and we'll be here for the next half hour with all of the best and the newest in football in Manitoba. John, we have two segments with Brian Dobie, the head coach of the University of Manitoba Bisons. It's always a pleasure to have Brian on the show. You work for him, so this is a bit of a conflict of interest for you, I know. But isn't he a great guy?
Great guy. I call him my surrogate father. Really, like he's the guy that recruited me in here. I've made a home here in Winnipeg. If it weren't for him, my life would be completely different. We were both at the press conference yesterday. He's got some big news about the local recruits. The local recruits that committed with the Bisons. It's a good day for talking with Coach Dobie, as you know, he's very long-winded.
And he's got a brand new assistant, Nobby Khan.
Yeah.
Going to help Terry Watson out?
Yep, going to help out with the offensive line. We're super excited to have him on staff, but he's always been a friend of the program. He's always helped us out. Even though he's Simon Fraser University, he put on a shirt yesterday. He told me, I think I've sold my soul. And the way that he explains it is, oh, it's okay. They're NCAA, it's CIS.
That's
it's
right,
completely
exactly.
different,
It's
right?
two different things altogether. Yeah, you can always be a fan of, say, Michigan and the Bison, sure. We're also going to have Dave Donaldson on. It's always a pleasure to have Dave on because he tells us about the rule changes, and there's a couple of rule changes for amateur football
regarding
on special teams.
Special teams, that's right. You know, he's going to touch base on some of the different rules that were changed, and it's going to be interesting, you know, to see the different.
Sure, and different in a good way. I like both the changes. There'll be lots more today. It's a busy day on The Huddle. It's community created on Shaw TV. We'll be right back after this.
I thought indoor tanning was safe.
They said their tanning rays were less likely to cause a sunburn.
What you need to know is UV light from indoor tanning
can cause premature aging.
And even worse, UV light can increase your risk of skin cancer,
including melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer.
In fact, current estimates are that 1 in 7 Canadians will develop skin cancer.
And 1 person dies from skin cancer about every 7 hours.
I don't want to be one of them.
This message brought to you by the Canadian Dermatology Association.
Welcome back to The Huddle. Scott Taylor, along with my accountant, Amy Moore. This is the truth. Amy is an accountant.
I am.
And quite a good accountant. Has been an accountant for a long time.
For a very long time. Longer than I care to admit.
What you may not know is that she's also a quarterback and a defensive back. Quarterback with the Wolfpack.
Yes.
The Wolfpack quarterback and a defensive back with Canada's national team.
Yes.
The first question I have to ask you is the same question I asked Roxana and Shar and Lisa and everybody else we've had on this show from women's football. How did you get involved in the game?
Well, I grew up watching football with my brother and playing as much as I could just for fun. And I played women's touch football for a long time. And then I just heard about the Fearless.
But you weren't a non-athlete before that. I mean, you played sports.
Correct, yes. I've played sports all my life. I played soccer as a kid and volleyball and basketball in high school.
At the UW?
And a couple of years of volleyball at UW. And played a couple of years of field lacrosse. So there aren't very many sports I haven't at least watched or been interested in. So
you liked football,
I loved
but you
football.
played touch.
I played touch because that was the only sport that was available to us at the time. When the United States opened their women's football league, there was a few of us that were very tempted to go down to Minneapolis and try and get on that team because we just loved football so much. But, I mean, we were all working and couldn't really take the time off. So when the opportunity presented itself in Winnipeg, jumped on board as soon as I could. And
so you're one of the pioneers?
I wouldn't say that. I started playing the second year that it was in existence, but obviously Tanis Wilson started that team. And
why did you wait?
Honestly, the year that they started, I had taken a year off to travel, so I wasn't actually physically in Winnipeg to participate, so I didn't get to be on that first team, but played the second team and have been playing ever since.
So you rushed back from Timbuktu in order to play in the second year.
Yeah.
And now you played touch, so you kind of got the game.
Yep.
But like our friend Roxana Cox, who came out to play quarterback for the Fearless and didn't know the positions.
Yep.
You had a head start on that? You knew generally where everybody played?
Absolutely. I mean, I was a big NFL, CFL fan and have watched football for as long as I can remember. And so, yeah, I understood the game and enjoyed the strategy of the game and things like that. So, but it is true, like, it's a challenge, I think, for some of the women coaches is that they have to teach adults the skills, but even though they're adults, their level of understanding is probably, some of them, at the level of the younger kids. So it's translating that skill.
Melanie Asen admitted to me that she knew nothing at all about the game. Where to stand, how to run, how to put her equipment on. She knew nothing when she started. And then you'll get someone like you who knows the game, understands it, has seen it most of their life. That's a big chasm to kind of cross to try to get a practice done.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a practice and we were talking about blocking responsibilities, and it was probably 2 hours later we realized that when the coach said you have to block the linebacker, the person didn't know who the linebacker was. So you actually had to physically
put a linebacker there.
Yeah, show them, because they didn't have the same terminology. They hadn't grown up with that sort of education. And
as you know, if you don't have the terminology for football, it's another language.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're learning something brand new.
Yeah.
Now, you've been quite successful with this, with your time with, now did you start with Fearless and go to Wolfpack?
I did. I started with Fearless and I went over to Wolfpack. Last year was my first year and I played quarterback for them, and we had best O-line in the city, or I would say in the league, so it was a pleasure to...
Game's growing by leaps and bounds, isn't it?
Absolutely. 2 new teams in the WWCFL this year, so there'll be 5 in the Alberta Conference, and there's still 4 in the Prairie Conference. So
there's talk that maybe in Brandon, maybe another team here?
Absolutely, yeah. There's
so there's always room for players to come out?
Yeah.
And when do you get started? You get started soon now.
We are already started. We're actually practicing in the gym right now. As you can tell by the weather, it's going to be a while before we get outside. But
when's the first game?
We open our season on May 5th in Saskatoon.
Wow. So it's right around the corner.
We're
a month away. I mean, really, it's going to just jump up, and there you are on the bus. You're heading to Saskatoon.
Yeah, and this year we're at a point where we might actually have to play our first game without having practiced outside, because
that's Manitoba.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Where we live.
Yeah.
Boy, you started early in the year.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a good season.
It's exciting. Amy Moore is the quarterback of the Wolfpack and a defensive back on the national team. We didn't even get to talk about that. We'll have to do that some other time. We'll do it. We'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Amy Moore, thanks for joining us. This is The Huddle. We're community created on Shaw TV. Come on back.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Oh, boy. Thank you.
You make me feel so young.
Think young. Pass it on.
You make me feel so spring is sprung.
Hi, I'm Andrew Harris of the BC Lions. You're watching The Huddle, community created on Shaw TV.
Even if you don't have insurance, your dentist can help you get the dental care you need.
Your dentist can help you assess the benefits of treatment and the consequences of avoiding it before any decisions are made, whether you're insured or not.
Only your dentist has the education and expertise to diagnose and treat all of your oral health needs.
To find out more, visit manitobadentist.ca.
Talk to your dentist. Good for you. Good for life.
Welcome back to The Huddle. As promised, the head coach of the University of Manitoba Bisons, Brian Dobie. We've never really had a long conversation, you and I. No,
let's see.
You know what?
When we have not had a long conversation.
I was going to say, we've never really had a short one, and I don't want to have a short one today. I do want to congratulate you for the news conference this week. You've recruited 4 local guys, and we'll talk about the guys who've come in from BC, because it looks like this crew from BC is going to really, really have an impact on this football club. But let's talk about the local guys you brought in, and one of them, right off the top, Kirk Goodrich, is a young man who has been with you before, wasn't ready, now he's ready.
Yep, and you know what? You see a lot of that. You see it everywhere. In fact, interestingly, for what it's worth, every year when we're trying to decide and do our voting for Rookie of the Year in Canada West, it's tough. Seriously, we'll get the vote sheets from all the teams, and you look at it, and there's certain guys you have to kind of, which guy is that? You know, they didn't play very much. They're rookies, you know, coming out of high school.
And people don't understand sometimes how difficult it is to go from high school or even junior to this step.
And you mentioned junior. That's a step. That's a transition. You know, people think it's, you know, because of the age, but there's reasons that every level is a level. It's an ascending level, and that's how it should be. And it's all about development. It's all about moving forward. It's all about progress. You know, it's no different. Our guys go to the CFL. They're not jumping in and starting. They're not jumping in and ripping the league up. When that happens, there's a progression that takes place at every level.
So Kirk Goodrich was there 3 years ago.
Yes.
As a redshirt.
Correct.
And now, after what happened then, he's back.
Yeah. And
why do you think he's ready now?
Well, I think he's ready now because he's grown up. You know, he's grown up as a person.
Physically and emotionally and mentally and
everything.
Else, yeah.
You know, he wasn't really ready for school. He came in, and I remember talking to him in my office, and he wasn't enjoying school. He just wasn't enjoying it. You know, I don't think it was so much the football. You know, he's redshirting. He knew what he was getting into. But it was a combination of everything. And he's just a typical case that you see, depending how everybody's their own individual. Left university, you know, and went and played with Winnipeg Rifles, and which is a great move and a great stepping stone for the right person at the right time. Spent a couple of years with the Rifles
and found himself.
Absolutely, his first year with the Rifles, when he left our program, he was Prairie Conference Rookie of the Year. Scored 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, had a great year at receiver and a great receiving group. Ryan Marsh, of course, the quarterback there.
That helped?
Yeah, absolutely.
He mentioned that yesterday.
That definitely helped. And now he'll be coming back and rejoining Ryan and the group of receivers we have at Manitoba. So, you know, it's with the Rifles program, there's a real ebb and flow that we have, I think, between the two programs. And it's, to be honest with you, I think Ryan Carhut, their new head coach, would say it. Greg Graceffa, the former head coach, would say it. It's unquestionably the best junior university football relationship in the country, I think, to be honest with you.
So now you've got 3 high school kids coming in too, and they can all play. We've seen them in the Football Manitoba's under-18 program. These guys can play football.
Yeah.
Brady Will, Houston Rennie, and Jaden McCoy.
Yes, Jaden McCoy, you know, Harry Hood Award winner, amazing kid. Amazing kid. You know, to be honest with you, I mean, this kid, he plays both ways, quarterback, he plays receiver, he plays defensive back. He's a 93, 95 average at Miles Mack. Amazing person.
He walks around listening to astrophysics podcasts.
He listens to podcast. I can't even say astrophysics. I mean, you know, who does that? Like, who does that? He does that. And, you know, I have to say something about him, though. I think that really struck me this year in the recruiting process. I can't remember the last time that I was recruiting a player in Winnipeg, Manitoba that was so respected by his coaches, his teammates, his opponents, opposing coaches, the entire football community. The respect out there for Jaden McCoy is through the roof. And at the end of the day, you know, wow, great on him. And he's getting a scholarship now and moving on to university life as a student athlete. He's just such a winner. You know, and you know, along with the other guys, of course, we've recruited. But he's
you've known Brady Will for quite a while.
Yeah, Brady Will. Brady Will, safety at Oak Park. He was 14 years old. We run a camp every year on campus in the indoor complex. And Brady, as it turned out, was at our camp. I remember this day very well. There was a young kid. He was 14 years old. His parents came up to me because he was sitting off on the side of the camp. He didn't want to participate. So a couple of coaches talked to him. They got him back onto the camp. Then he went and sat again. He refused to continue. He just didn't want to be there. He didn't like football. So his mom and dad kind of sought me out in the camp and called me over, and I talked with them briefly. And so I sat down with them, and we talked a bit. Then there was a lunch break. Got him back on the floor. There's a lunch break. Comes out after lunch. No. So we went out in the parking lot at the indoor complex, and we walked around for 30, 40 minutes. We talked for a long time, just asked his parents, okay, if we just went for a walk with him. Heck, we had the camp running. I took this kid out to the parking lot and just to get out of that environment. And we talked about everything. You know, we just talked about school. We talked about friends. We talked about football, you know, and basically said to him, look, you know, go for the experience. Just go and find a way to have fun. decide what's going to be fun for you. Go out and have some fun. Well, he ended up the next 2 days being back for the camp, participating, and that's the end of the story. Except when I start recruiting him at Oak Park, I'm sitting with him and his dad. And his dad says, "You don't remember my son, do you?" And I went, "I'm sorry, we've met before." And he went, "Well, at a football camp." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's hundreds of kids that go through the camps and, don't remember everybody." And he said, "Well, my son was the son that you took out and, for about 40 minutes out in the parking lot and talked him back into playing football. And had that not happened, he may not be sitting here today." And he chose football, and away he went. And I went, "Are you kidding? You're that kid?" "Oh, listen, that's exactly how it went." And I went, "You are not signing at Calgary or anyplace else. You are a Bison. This is karma all the way. You cannot not be a Bison after that." So what comes around goes around sometimes. There is some karma that works, right?
Yeah, it's worked out well for you with Brady Will, for sure.
It has.
We're going to come back and talk about the fact that he could have gone to Calgary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys go to other schools in Canada. We're going to talk about recruiting across the country.
Great.
Okay, we're going to have one more session with Brian Dobie, the head coach of the University of Manitoba Bisons. You're watching The Huddle. It's community created on Shaw TV.
My son was 6.5.
Austin was 5.
When I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was 2.5 years old.
I would tell a child that is newly diagnosed with diabetes to live life to the fullest, and it doesn't have to hold you back.
Helping children cope with diabetes is great, but helping these kids be kids is amazing. Shaw, proud to support the Canadian Diabetes Association.
I'm Landon Rice of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and you're watching The Huddle on Shaw TV.
And this is The Huddle. It's probably impossible to think of it as anything different. I see The Huddle everywhere. So yeah, this is The Huddle. And we're with Brian Dobie. It's segment number 2. It's great when we have you on, and it's so seldom, so we should do it more often. But we've talked about the young guys that you've recruited in kind of the first news conference of the year. Yeah. You've also gone out of your way to go to BC. You've you've recruited what, 7 or 8 players out of BC already that you've announced. Some very interesting names coming out of that Vancouver Island Raiders program and out of the good high school programs. I want to talk to you generally though about recruiting in Canada. There's a couple of guys who got away. Now, whether or not you wanted to recruit them or not, but Ian Lee's going to Acadia, Leon Senerini's going to Carleton.
Mason Dick to Saskatchewan.
Mason Dick to Saskatchewan. There's some kids that have left.
Yeah.
What's recruiting like in this country? And would you say that it's now become one of the biggest parts of your job?
Oh, recruiting, I say it all the time. I say we've become the NCAA without their resources. It's everything. It's everything. Everybody has got great coaching staffs. Everybody's got great people with experience and their own set of X's and O's, but everybody doesn't have great players. And coaches, I think. Good coaching staff has the ability to put a team over an edge.
Right.
We won the Vanier Cup in 07. It sounds arrogant to say, but I think I've got a great coaching staff. I've got 13, 14 guys that are very dedicated, and without that group of coaches, we wouldn't have won the Vanier Cup, but we wouldn't have contended for the Vanier Cup without great players. So recruiting
and people tend to forget that a lot of the players on that team were not Winnipeg kids.
Oh, absolutely. Only about 25% were Winnipeg kids. So recruiting has become so national. Blake Mill and I were probably the first to really, really, truly go national when he was at St. Mary's. Right. And it was, you think, Winnipeg, pretty isolated city, believe it or not. Halifax, pretty isolated city, and to get out there nationally, and there's 3.5% roughly the population of the nation in Manitoba. Therefore, 3.5% of the top football players, essentially. Mm-hmm. So away you go. And the thing about recruiting that I think people have to understand is this is about kids' lives. It's not. It affects, as a recruiter, as a head coach, it affects my life, the decisions they make. But I think anybody that's recruiting, you're making a foolish and a very wrong mistake if you lose sight. It's about the student athlete. It's about their life. It's about their choice. That kid can make no bad decision. Because at the end of the day, once he makes a decision to go to university, how good is that?
How bad is it?
Be a student athlete.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the rest is really up to him, regardless of whether he stays home or goes away, whatever school he goes to. And it's about going through the process with them and respecting their decisions. So when great young men like Leon and Mason, kids like that, make decisions to leave, hey, you know, we shake hands and we have a hug and we have great talk and we wish them all the best. And I truly mean that. And I think that they wish us the best as well.
Now, I would suggest this to you as well. It never hurts to burn a bridge. And number two, there is always things that can happen in a person's life that when they leave town, they can always come back.
Absolutely.
That you may 2 years down the road see all of these kids at your door.
Absolutely. You know, and you know, they're going for an experience. They're staying for an experience. It's experience they choose. And I would be a pretty big hypocrite to be out in Vancouver recruiting to try to bring BC kids into Manitoba and expect our Manitoba kids not to look beyond our borders either.
Exactly.
You know, it's a decision. It's a family decision, and in the end, it's a personal decision that the athlete makes. And you do the best that you can to present who you're about, what you're representing in your program, your university, everything that you have to offer, and then let them make the choice. It's
well, you
their choice.
You have more to offer now. Because there was a time when you won the Vanier Cup, and you basically were dressing in a metal corrugated box.
Absolutely.
And now you have Investors Group Field.
Unbelievable. It's, you know, and with all due respect, everybody talks about Canada Stadium and the Bombers. Wow, what an impact for the Bombers. Absolutely it is, and great for them. They're going from here to here. We're going from way down there somewhere to there. It's a whole different deal.
Do you like
I
your
can't wait for people to see it. Our dressing room and our weight room are through the roof. And I'll say this. I've said it coast to coast. I've said it here. Most important rooms for players in a facility, whether you're in the NFL, the CFL, college football, high school, dressing room, you know, the locker room, that's your home,
so much time
and the weight
there,
room, your training center. I don't know who has a better combination, amateur or pro, any single team, any single sport in the nation, than the University of Manitoba Bisons in terms of the locker room, the weight room that we're getting for our student athletes. There's some other great ones out there. The new Bomber one, for example, you know, the Edmonton Eskimos. There's not a lot. Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm telling you right now, it's that nice.
People need a tour.
People need a tour. People deserve a tour. This is our community stadium. In fact, Colleen Dufresne, our athletic director, says I'm the most overpaid tour guide in the entire province of Manitoba, if not the country. So I love giving tours, and I invite you to one anytime you want.
Well,
and
we'll
you know, love to get you.
We got to come down there with the camera.
Absolutely.
Got to go through the stadium and have a real good look at it.
It's incredible.
Enjoy your recruiting.
Hey, you bet.
And we'll
Thanks,
talk
Scott.
again before the season starts.
For sure.
Brian Dobie, head coach, University of Manitoba Bisons. These have been a couple of special segments for us here on The Huddle, and it's community created on Shaw TV. We'll be right back.
I'm Teague Sherman of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You're watching The Huddle on Shaw TV.
I would describe myself as a person who doesn't give up easily. When I was 7 years old, I lost my left arm in a grain auger accident. After my accident, I still wanted to be independent. The Warhams have done so much for me in emotional and also financial support for the arms and everything. There's always a way to do anything, and the Warhams, they'll help you along.
It is What the Ref. What the Ref? And it's Dave Donaldson with us, as he is always with us for this segment. Big rule changes coming for amateur football.
Yeah.
Certainly on special teams. Fill us in.
Well, basically, you know, we've talked about in the past no yards on punts and punt returns, right? So what I found out now for amateur is when Team A, which is the punt team, punts the ball, if there's an offside player within the restraining 5-yard zone, and you know, conversely, there's Team B player within that zone as well, but no one's touched the ball. And usually in the past, if the punter who's onside recovers the ball, we would ding them a 15-yard penalty, right?
Right, because there was another player within the zone.
Now that's changed. It's only a 5-yard penalty. So that's something to note for coaches and players.
Well, that's a big change. That's a 10-yard difference.
Right, and as you know, football.
But still, you still want your all of your players to be with outside that zone.
Yeah, but at times, you know, in scenarios as an ex-player, you know, players just aren't aware of what's going on, and especially if they got an onside guy coming, you know, best to get out of there, right? But then if you get out, guy returner picks it up, runs.
You look bad in the film.
Absolutely. So, you know.
What else?
On kickoffs. So in the past, if the ball went 10 yards downfield and then bounced back and was touched by Team A, that would be a penalty because the ball, by our standard in the past, it didn't go 10 yards.
It was untouched, so it would bounce back. It still wasn't dead at the 10-yard line.
Right. So, but it bounces back, so we're calling it a legal
So
touch,
it has
right?
gone over the 10-yard marker.
Right, and bounced back. And that at that point, it's touched when it bounced back. So
Boy, you could find a kicker that could bring it back like a golf pro brings back a golf ball. You got a brand new weapon.
Absolutely, great weapon. So now, from what I understand with the rule, if the ball goes 10 yards and it's bounced back and you know teammate touches it, we're going to deem it had already crossed the 10 yards. Right. Therefore, no penalty. There won't be any penalty. In the past, there was, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now we're going to deem it, hey, it's gone to 10 yards, it's bounced back.
Should have been that way all the way anyway.
I just follow the rules. I don't read them and follow them.
What? The ref? Dave Donaldson, everybody. 2 new changes on special teams in amateur football this year. We'll have Dave back next week. This is The Huddle, community created on Shaw TV. What? The ref?
Can you believe it?
I use art to understand the mind of the youth, to learn from their ways, to seek art instead of the streets.
I teach people how to manage their money.
So I have a few extra bucks in the bank at the end of the month.
And with the support of the United Way, I help refugees get the medical care they need to start a new life.
Give and help change a life. Give to United Way.
Hi, I'm Carl Volney, running back for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You're watching The Huddle on Shaw TV.
I'm exhausted.
Great show.
Oh, it was a big
Good
show.
stuff.
Big show. I love the story that Brian Dobie told about Brady Will.
Oh yeah,
a tremendous story.
That goes out to the Bison ID camps. That he was one of those kids, and you know, there's some the kids that don't always have you know the best time. They're unsure. They don't know. There's coaches around and stuff, and it's a bit overwhelming for some of them. Brady Will was one of these guys. I kind of left he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And Coach Dobie set him aside and
But I get the sense from being at the news conference and talking to Brady himself and to Brady's dad and to Coach Dobie that it wasn't a speech that said you should play football, get out there and play. Nope. It was, hey, if you like it, go find something you like to do.
Let's talk about something that you're familiar with. Let's talk about friends, you know, the school that you're going to, what's going on, you know. It was really interesting and like Coach Dobie touched base on karma. You know, what goes around comes around.
But did he ever turn out to be a great football player?
Oh, did he ever?
He turned out to be a great
Don't get me wrong.
player.
Brady literally kills people in the secondary. You know, he will rip your head off. But, you know, when he was a young kid, Coach Dobie pulled him aside at this camp and had him playing football again.
It's always great to have Coach Dobie on the show.
What? You know what else he was talking about? Is grabbing players out of the province. You know, you touched base with him on BC, and I thought it was a really good segment with Coach Dobie and the way what he was saying, you know, it's becoming a national recruiting.
It's a national program.
Everybody's doing it now, and you got to really pick and choose where you're going to be.
And you've got to find the players who fit into your program.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt for kids to go away. It doesn't hurt them at all. It was great to have Dave Donaldson on the show, too. We actually found out about the new no yards penalty.
And it's one thing that they changed the rules based on, you know, this is amateur football, and no offense to young aspiring punters, but we're not consistent with punting. And as a coach, it's always frustrating to get the 15 yards. But now it's a 5-yard penalty, which, you know, you can't have a guy that would spin the ball back like in golf that you were talking about. I mean, we're still amateur football players, right, at the end of the day. So we're only penalized 5 yards for that. I think it was a good rule change.
Yeah, I think all the rule changes were good. It's been a great show, and we'll have a great one for you next week. This is The Huddle. It's community created on Shaw TV. Scott Taylor, John Mackey, thanks for joining us.
The opinions expressed on the program you have just watched are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of this station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view.
Oh, hi. I can't get enough of this magazine. Scott Taylor with the axe. Jeremy Withings from the Transcona Nationals Midgets. Carl Volney, running back, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Oh, it's What the Ref, and I'm with the ref. Dave Donaldson. It will be busy. This is The Huddle, community created on Shaw TV.